As you probably noticed, our setup today is different. We left the comforts of SMNI studio to interview Senator Cynthia Villar at the Villar Sipag Farm School that straddles her hometown of Las Piñas City and the city of Bacoor in Cavite Province. She is, of course, a champion of agriculture, having been chairperson of the Senate Committee on Agriculture and Food since her first election to the upper chamber in 2013. Sipag, a virtue that has been attached to the Villar family, is in this case an acronym for the Social Institute for Poverty Alleviation and Governance. As our guest and special setting suggest, our topic today will focus on agriculture and poverty alleviation. We'll ask the Senator, what will it take to tap the full potential of the agri-sector and how can it contribute to eradicating extreme poverty and hunger? Senator, thank you for making time for business and politics.
Thank you also for coming and visiting our farm school.
This is a wonderful space, Senator, that I must admit, I live in your neighborhood, but this is my first time to go inside your school, and I'm quite impressed.
Yeah, this is actually owned by our company, our personal company, but I requested Senator Villar not to develop this anymore, but instead, during our lifetime, turn it into a farm school and maybe a tourist farm later on.
Yes. Senator, you are one of the rare champions of agriculture in the Philippines, and it's an important thing to note because we are still an agriculture country.
Yes.
More than half of the Filipino population, roughly, still live in the rural sector.
Yes.
And yet the agriculture sector contributes only about 10% to GDP, and I heard even some less in other sources.
Yeah.
How can we get someone like Senator Cynthia Villar, in fact, even the President, how do we get more people to pay attention to agriculture? What interested you? What drew you to this sector?
My lola used to plant ikmo, that is yung nganga.
Opo.
And that has been her livelihood all her lifetime from age 16 to 80. And she was able to send my father to school. My father was a graduate of the University of the Philippines
the late
Medical
Mayor
School.
Filemon.
Oh, yes, and became mayor and congressman of our town for 27 years.
Yes.
So I thought of my lola and how she made money by selling in the sidewalk of Divisoria, and na-realize ko because kanya yung value chain.
Opo.
Siya ang nagpa-plant sa Las Piñas during the day, and at 12 midnight sasakay siya sa bus, dala-dala niya yung produkto niya, magtitinda siya sa sidewalk ng Divisoria from midnight till morning. So, hindi ba magandang value chain? Kanya lahat.
Yes,
Kanya ang planting, kanya ang selling. So, parang you just have to change the model. Kasi tayo, usually, ang farmer, tapos may middleman, tapos may consumer. Dapat, yung farmer makarating sa consumer.
Right.
Para kanya lahat ang kita, tapos the goods will reach the consumer na cheaper.
Right.
Diba?
Right.
So, yun ang nakita ko from the life of my lola. And my mother and father, before although mayor ang tatay ko, my mother was managing a rice mill and a poultry farm in Muntinlupa, a poultry farm in Muntinlupa and a rice mill in Las Piñas. So I live in the farm
Opo.
during my childhood. So I'm exposed to agriculture, and at the same time, alam nyo naman, kami ni Manny, nagsimulang maliit. Si Manny was born in Tondo.
Opo.
Na mahirap. So we thought that poverty reduction should be our advocacy in our Villar Foundation. So, pag sinabi mong poverty reduction, then you have to go to agriculture because lahat ng mahirap nasa agriculture.
Right. Maybe you can talk about some of your initiatives. Kasi nga po, as you said, the point of focusing on agriculture really is to uplift
the lives of
people,
the farmer and the
right.
fisher folk.
And of course, but this is a very broad problem.
Yes,
But what should we be focusing on, or what are you focusing on to correct that?
Maybe I should focus on what I have legislated.
Sige po.
Kasi legislator ako eh. Since I am a legislator, I try to solve the problem of agriculture through legislation.
Apo.
And I guess the first 3 bills that I wrote is for yung IUUF against illegal and reported fishing for the fisher folks. And then another one is the establishment of the passing of the farm tourism law, which mandated the establishment of farm schools in tourist farms.
That's interesting.
And then the other one is Sugar Industry Development Fund.
Which is very much in the news.
Yeah, that was sometime in 2015, 2016. So it was a long time ago. Yeah. And yung IUUF, we passed that so that we can control those commercial fishermen going into the municipal waters. Kasi yung municipal water, which is 15 kilometers from the coast, should be for the small fisher folks. Yun yung IUUF. And that legislation gave us, kasi nasa red tag na tayo ng, ng European Union. Kung hindi ko mapapasa yun, yellow tag na tayo, magre-red tag, matatanggal yung GSP Plus natin sa European Union. And that allows 6,300 products export of the Philippines to Europe free of tariff.
Right.
So that is one of the reason I passed that. And another reason is they promised me, kasi noon ang collection sa from illegal fishing is 100 million. Sabi nila, if I pass the law, they can make 1 billion. Wow. So from that law, I earmarked 35% for implementation of that one penalties and 65% for the benefit of the small fisher folks in the municipal water.
Right.
But unfortunately, after I passed the law, imbis na tumaas, bumaba pa. Ngayon nga, 26 million lang.
Bakit po?
So, ewan ko nga. So,
very complicated. And the GSP Plus is important po because they're renegotiating that,
again,
the renewal.
The renewal. Yes. But during that time, it was renewed because we passed the IUUF law.
I see.
And then another one is the farm tourism law, which I got an idea from my trip to France. I was invited by the Association of Farm Schools in France in 2015, 2014. And I was surprised why France, which is a first world country, has thousands of farm schools, while the Philippines, an agricultural country, walang farm school.
Right.
So when I got back, I wrote that law of providing for farm tourism and establishment of learning sites in farm tourism sites. So, and then later on, when I passed the rice tarification law and the Coconut Industry Development Fund, I gave a lot of money to TESDA para bayaran niya yung mga tuition ng mga batang, mga fisher folks and farmers studying in farm school. Right. So they can be trained in better practices in the farm school, modern technology, without paying, but the farm school will get income from TESDA.
Right.
So, magtutuloy sila ng pagtuturo because they get income for what they're doing. So, that's another one. And of course, the SIDA law, which provided for the development, provision of 2 billion a year for the development of the sugar industry. But unfortunately, it was not well implemented. Na yung 2 billion, nagsimula ng 2 billion, alam mo naman ng DBM, if you don't use the money, they bring it down slowly. Now, it's 700. Before, it was 500 million only. And the provision of the law is 1 billion will go to farm-to-mill road, and then 300 million to helping the black farm, which are the farms of the land reform beneficiaries, to mechanize and to improve their system. And then 300 million for training, for other livelihood, and whatever developmental project they might think of, and also research. And then the 100 million to Land Bank to give loans to the sugar farmers, and another 300 million to Land Bank and DBP, and 100 million for I think it's scholarship for the children of sugar farmers. So, lahat yun.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, quite a bit. And that's developmental. But unfortunately, it was not implemented well. And then later on, I passed the amendment to the organic law kasi to get an organic certification, which you need for your product to go into supermarkets,
Right.
you have to pay 100,000 per product per year.
Wow.
But we passed the what you call participatory guarantee system, wherein they will form themselves into organization and they will certify, and it will cost only a small farmer 2,000 pesos a year to get certified. So you can sell your product more if it's organic. So, and it's affordable to the small farmers.
Right.
Oo. And then later on, yung ang RTL, yung Rice Tarification Law, which provided for the Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund.
RCEF.
We allocated 10 billion a year for mechanization, 5 billion, 3 billion for the distribution of inbred seeds, which is done by the cooperative of seed growers, of farmers, and then 1 billion for loans from DBP and Land Bank, and 1 billion for training, 700 million to TESDA, 100 million to ATI Agricultural Training Institute, which approves the module in the farm school, and then 100 million to PhilMech to teach mechanization, and 100 million to PhilRice to teach inbred seed production and the use of inbred seeds. Kasi ang inbred seeds, as differentiated from hybrid seeds, ito made in the Philippines by the co-op of farmers na dinevelop ng PhilRice, whereas hybrid seeds, it's imported.
I see.
So we would like our farmers to use the certified inbred seeds.
Yeah.
Oo, kasi,
and more resilient, probably.
Yeah. And that's the rice tarification law. And the balance, beyond 10 billion from the tariff on rice, will be given as financial assistance to farmers, rice farmers, owning 2 hectares and below, 5,000 pesos, 1.6 million farmers. So, yun ang financial assistance. And then, of course, the coconut Coconut Farmers and Industry Development Fund, which will come from the Coco Levy Fund. So, alam nyo naman, nakuha na ng mga coco farmers yung kanilang holdings sa San Miguel Corporation, and they sold it, and it was deposited to the Bureau of Treasury in the amount of 80 billion. And now we are distributing it to the coconut farmers through the Coconut Farmers and Industry Development Fund at the rate of minimum 5 billion a year, which will go to changing the seedlings of our coconut. Kasi yung coconut natin ngayong mataas, they can only produce 40 nuts per year per tree. The hybrid seedlings now, which is developed by the Philippine Coconut Authority, can produce 140 nuts per year per tree. So, triple. So, doon pa lang, triple na ang kita nila. And then, we are now encouraging intercropping. Hindi nila tinuruan ng intercropping ang coconut farmers. And yet, you get a lot because ang hiyang na hiyang under a coconut tree is coffee, cacao, and dairy. Yung coffee, we only produce 30% of our local demand. We import 70%. Cacao, we only produce 20% of our local demand. We import 80%. And dairy, we produce only 1% of our local demand. We import the 99%. So we hope that we can develop those three industries through intercropping.
We'd like to ask you about that, Senator, but we'll just take a quick break. We'll be right back with SMNI's Business and Politics. We're talking to Senator Cynthia Villar.